abundance and of perfect development of their faculties, and not compel man to work himself out of kind of original slime. How does Kant get out of it? He doesn't solve it here, he only states it.
Possibility that nature might be more concerned for man's self-respect, for his well-being.
What about these poor fellows?
They're creating this work for later generations.
They did not even know it. They did not even have this comfort that they knew it. We today could say, well, whatever we suffer, and even if we are atomically formed, we can still say that it's necessary so that the world state will finally arrive. So they have some comfort in the cold war. But what about these poor people in the summer time?
I think one of the underlying things is that this perfection of man has to be created by man himself, and you have to require an external agent.
I have a accusation from the man about man or about individual man.
Original?
Either about man or single man.
Yeah.
This is about all of mankind. It's not relevant because all of mankind.
Yeah, sure, but mankind, as I said, this cannot be happy or unhappy, only individuals are.
Yeah. It's just an individual. You don't have the same kind of determinism with the individual as you do with the
How does it happen? I'm surprised about the lack of theological imagination, if I may call it that.
Immortality of the soul.
The immortality of the soul is of course. No, I'm trying again and again to see, and I think it's necessary to see, why Kant hesitated regarding philosophy of history. Kant had, that is my hypothesis, a suspicion of fundamental effects of philosophy of history, which kept him back. Now, that is a purely historical study. But think of one simple thing. As we shall see very soon, the next day, we had in this 18 pages the first outline of what about 60, 70 years later became the Communist Manifesto. So the problem is with us. With the problem regarding the expectations from history, and therefore whether one must not be an entirely different solution of your problem than history. I
thought that this might be related to the problem that if, since man's life is too short for it to reach perfection, then society must be able to reach perfection, or if there's going to be any at all. So that's
again, what about the individual? You must not forget the great criticism of Hegel by Kierkegaard and other men, some other men who thought about new approach, was always this, what about the individual? I mean that the individual is used by the word spirit for extremely wise purposes. Is perhaps not a sufficient solution, especially for those individuals who are not so wise as to know it. Then it's easy.
Why should the immortality of the soul? I don't really understand. Why should this idea of it keep Kant from a philosophy of history?
Not keep. I mean, that would be a wholly hypothesis immortality of soul seemed to him a rational solution to the problem of the disproportion between morality and happiness. I mean, there's not a religion about it, and the other one that comes from faith. Now, knowing this, that there is a perfect which cannot be known, but which must be believed about now, he had, of course, was free to see any possible effect in a beauty this world of morality. He could admit it to himself, what other people cannot admit. That is, I don't think that is the only point, but I think it's one of the important. Yes.
Because I can't make God not subject to law. Because in this case, God would be using men as means, at least temporarily, while they are alive.
All your expressions are objectionable. I don't go into that. Let us say, because it's not entirely wrong to say, of course God is subject to the moral law. Kant's God is a moral God, just. But the moral law does not forbid to use men as means. It only forbids to use them only as means. And that Kant would say it was not a circle. That is meant for them and for, because even these people who have no knowledge, whatever of this progressive movement, and if they have a good will, and make a serious effort to live well, living according to that good will, can justly hope for immortality. So, yes.
Would you say, according to Kant, that these earlier generations, which labor on behalf of the later ones, deserve less than the later ones because they're not as human yet?
It's a hard question. I mean, because that is a very we come to a passage where he at least indicates this problem of man's becoming, of excess becoming man. And that is perhaps taken up as this connection. But don't forget it.
But still it's about the criticism of Hegel. This all depends what is considered, what is the end of man. I know that the Russian revolutionaries, they consider that just the end is the sacrifice. And the most supreme sacrifice was meant the most supreme fulfillment of man's end. And for example, certainly revolutionaries stressed that it is bad to kill a man. But precisely if they go and kill, for example, the Tsar, they commit a bad deed. But by doing so, they commit the supreme sacrifice, because they sacrifice not only life, but they sacrifice the soul.
I believe that is a more Dostoevsky than Marx, or something like that. But I would simply say this from every Marxist point of view, whatever they may make now out some of them. I don't think that it's orthodox Marx. No, they don't go looking for that kind of thing. But they would say this. There is such a thing called the realm of freedom. Did you ever hear of that? Which comes at the end, after the jump. Now the realm of freedom, that is the state in which every man can fully develop his faculties. fully develop his faculties, but he can do it only in and through living together or cooperation as a wholly socialized being, like a self. Yeah? Where is there any need for sacrifice? Sacrifice is necessary only it belongs to the realm of necessity. Because then you would have to raise, then what is possible are some very daring actions, say in a super duper Sputnik going to the next galaxy, which requires particular courage, I suppose, and that cannot be expected by everyone, and that's just fine. But sacrifice in this sense, a killing, there will be no killing, because such criminals can't appear in a free society, and if they do, they will be the people will simply take care of them, as Lenin puts it. I mean, maybe by that time they will have to reconcile to psychoanalysis, and we'll send him, that fellow, to psychoanalysis. I don't know. But this sacrifice morally has no place there. That's it, I think, a very Russian. Yeah, preface.
Yes, I think it's very Russian. But I think
No, Russian. Very Russian. That you must sacrifice your soul. Yeah. I don't no, let us forget about that. But let us keep it, we will come to Marx very soon, I think, but we must proceed in an orderly fashion. Now, Kant goes then on in the fourth proposition to this sentence. The means for bringing about, now we know the end. The end is the full development of the faculties of man, which can be achieved only at a very advanced stage, and can never be fully achieved if there is to be an influence. Now, but the means for bringing about the development of man's faculties is the antagonism implied in man's unsocial sociality, as Kant calls it. Man has a social tendency. Man has not a social nature, of course, that's impossible. Man has a propensity to enter into society. Notice that, line 6 or 7. The old Lockean formula. Man is not a social animal. But on the other hand, he has also an inclination, man has an inclination to sich zu vergesellschaften, which is really Marx's own term, to socialize himself. He has a propensity to that. But on the other hand, he has also a strong propensity to isolate himself. That is his anti-social or asocial inclination or propensity. And this from this anti-social propensity, there follows an antagonism. The war of everybody against everybody, which is thought through. Now, but that is an impossible condition, as we know from Hobbes and Locke. To what does it point? To what does this war of universal antagonism point? To peace. But Kant says more precisely, to a lawful order of society. To lawful order of society. That is the only solution of this antagonism, is such a lawful order. Now this point, that is crucial. The development can take place only by virtue of an antagonism. Now, let us compare that very simply with very shortly with a simple progressive scheme. What is a vehicle of progress according to the simple progressive scheme? What does it bring about?
Well, it's just a simple line of causality, intellectual progress, ever higher,
Enlightenment. Ever increasing knowledge and ever increasing diffusion. Kant says no. Antagonism. Something which has nothing to do with reason as reason. Again, let us look forward. How did the fellow at the end of this development call it? How does the class struggle is developed, in many ways developed version of what Kant calls here the antagonism. And here Kant says in a criticism of a certain sentimental Rousseau notion in this conversation which we should read. I think there happens, this resistance is it, which arouses all powers of man, compels him to overcome his propensity to laziness, and driven by ambition, desire to lord it over, or avarice, to make for himself a rank among his fellows, whom he can't stand very well, but on the other hand, from whom he can't get away very well either. That is the social asociality. We are pathological, and not in the sense of glory, but in the sense of Kant's word, by our passions, bound to our fellow men. We need them for our passionate desires. For example, perhaps prestige to good extent. A man is concerned with prestige, is concerned with authority. He is in one way extremely social. He cannot get what he wants except in a true manner. And on the other hand, at the same time, he is of course everyone's enemy. Because other men's prestige obscures his. Yeah? That is the situation of men. Now, there occur the first true steps.
Thus, the first steps of barbarism and culture are achieved. For culture actually consists in the social value of man. All man's
Now, let me see. The culture which actually consists, all right, talk about that.
All man's talents are gradually unfolded. Taste is developed. Through continuous enlightenment, the basis is laid for a frame of mind which, in the course of time, transforms the raw natural faculty of moral discrimination into definite practical principles. Thus, pathologically...
In other words, man is born as man with a raw natural faculty to moral discrimination. But that is not the full morality. Full morality requires definite practical principles. Yeah?
Thus, a pathologically enforced coordination of society.
Pathological means by passion. Yeah.
Finally transforms it into a moral whole.
Can transform. There is no necessity that the moral whole will come about. There is a necessity for the social end coming, not for the moral.
Without these essentially unlovely qualities of asociability, from which springs the resistance which everyone must encounter in his egoistic pretensions, all talents would have remained hidden germs. If man lived an Arcadian shepherd's existence of harmony, moderation, and mutuality, man, good-natured like the sheep he is herding, would not invest his existence with greater value than that his animals have.
It is domestic, domestic capitalism.
Man could not fill the vacuum of creation as regards his end, rational nature.
Up to this point. So you see, that is Kant's criticism, in a way criticism of Rousseau's idyllic notion of that early, primitive, good-natured, man of the state of nature. But Kant says that can there be any question that this is inferior to the development of man's faculty? Now that is a good system, somehow taken to all the sides. Kant never believed that man intelligence very high. He had read so many stories about sophisticated projects being depicted by Red Indian on the Americans, that in some other stories the Kant didn't believe in a method source. But however this may be, he accepts here for the time being this notion. Good-natured and uncivilized and unintelligent. And then at the end, consciously moral, autonomous, and all human faculties developed. That's the beginning and that's the end. How is man brought from the pre-moral beginning to the moral end? Would you give up?
By the asociability which forces him to develop his faculties.
Yeah, sure. But I would like to have that clearer.
Or
By immoral, I would say. Let's make the correction up. At any rate, these people, the primitive people, are good-natured like sheep. These people in between are not good-natured like sheep. Their qualities are not noble. Let us go to the end of this and say they are really malice. Malice is required for the development of bad things. Is required for bringing it about. There is a great problem here which is indicated by the fact that if I'm not mistaken, the word passion never occurs. Kant speaks only of inclinations and propensities, which as such are morally neutral. The passions upon Kant, especially the passions mentioned here, are simply morally bad. But he doubtless speaks of these passions, but he seems to try to overcome the difficulty in an insufficient manner by avoiding the word passions. But let me now, that is of course of the very greatest importance. Does this thought, again, let's look at Marx. That's a simple illustration and an important one because it's a more than way. How is it Marx? When it will be a new schema in simplest form. Beginning, in between, and end. Right? Original comics. Then you have private property in various forms. And that the historical process is the history of private property. And at the end, communism on the basis of the full development of mankind. Private property, which is in Marx, just as in Rousseau, inseparable from these unlovable qualities or from the passion, is the vehicle bringing man from original undeveloped simplicity to final developed perfection. But if you must, to understand it, you must also look backward. Do you know of a similar schema in pre-modern thought? Very good. Stay.
Study of pigs, the feverish study of the Republic.
Yes. Now that is absolutely so. And I think Plato's Republic is really the classic presentation of the problem. We have a city of such simple people who live like sheep. Don't do any harm to anyone, not even to rules. They don't strict vegetarians. And no government, no laws. Wonderfully happy banana eaters. And they are. Socrates never calls it a city of pigs, someone else, an interlocutor who doesn't like it. And why does he not like it?
No luxuries.
No luxuries. In other words, he has no moral objection, but simply that's no life. Where do you get, what does it speak of? Cookies and then special pastries, and above all, steaks. Now, but that of course is not Plato's argument. But what Plato wants to indicate is this: if this fellow had lived amongst these Tahitians, wherever they are called, he would have broken out at the first opportunity. Yeah? So, in other words, it is an irrational dissatisfaction. But in this irrational dissatisfaction, there lies a divination of the inadequacy of simple primitivity. To that extent, the world is necessary. And what happens then? Then we get the city of Russia, and it's a feverish city. And what happens then? A purification must take place. In other words, and who does the purification? Well, say certain wise men. Yeah? Because purification is of course not effective in the Republic, that's only in speech. But if we would put it into practical terms, men of superior wisdom and virtue would have to come in to establish the perfect society. The question we have to raise is this: how is it, does Kant need wise men of superior wisdom and virtue to establish the perfect society? On the basis you read the whole, I mean, if the audience too are supposed to have it, then you surely. And what is your answer?
To achieve the perfect society, yes. Because the problem which we haven't raised yet,
Namely?
that this must be society under laws. The laws must be administered. And the person who is the master, as he calls it, is above the laws.
All right.
He must be a perfectly just person.
Whether you have understood this properly is especially another question. I have very great doubts. And I think the emphasis in Kant lies not on the intervention of an autonomous reason which puts a limit to the passions. But somehow the passions by their own may work it out. For the time being, I would like to say only, read to you a passage from Kant's Anthropology, of which I do not know whether it is translated into English. I read it from the translation. Now what does it say? Of the many inclinations one may grant, but that providence has will, but that they should become passions. Providence has not will. And to present providence from this point of view may be forgiven to a poet, namely to Pope, who said reason is only a magnet. Reason is a magnet. If reason is a magnet, the passions are the wind, meaning for a ship. But the philosopher must not permit this principle that providence has willed the passions. You see, that good look. Providence has willed these passions so that the end may be achieved. Not even in order to praise the passions as a provisoration. What is that in English? Provisoire. Provisional establishment of providence in order to bring about good ends. Now, if they mention amongst these passions here, among others, with emphasis, ambition, the desire to lord over other men, and avarice. You see, Kant had great difficulties to admit that the theology of nature, which he speaks, was of providence, would deliberately use the passions, vices, for achieving a good end. Now let us look after Kant. What about Hegel? Because in Marx it's so different from Hegel. That passion is of course the thing which moves the history of the world. You see, there is another important consideration why Kant was somewhat reluctant to go with full sails into a philosophy of history. Such a vindication of providence would be saddled with a great problem that a moral principle, providence, would justify immorality. Kant, the great moralist, had here some qualms which neither Hegel nor Marx ever felt. We will come back to this question later. Perhaps I find another passage which can illustrate it. But I must confess that is by no means clear in Kant. Kant hesitates. I read to you from his presumptive beginnings of the human race, the presumptive beginning of the history of man. It's in a section called Note. Before reason awoke, there was not yet command or prohibition, and hence no transgression. But when moment began its business, and however feeble reason is, it came in conflict with bestiality and the whole force of bestiality. There had to be emerged evils, and what is worse, given a more cultivated reason, there had to emerge muscle, vices. So in other words, where necessary, given the development of reason, but not yet a sufficient development of reason, and the non-rational, the animal or bestial element in man. And there are other passages. In other words, what I want to say is this: Kant is hesitant, or cannot say more. Kant is hesitant to say that the passions, and especially these passions which we mentioned, ambition, avarice, and so on, are to be blessed for having brought man from a state of stupid simplicity towards a state of perfection. That is, I think, Hegel and Marx were in this respect more, as the Germans say, großzügig. What would be the English translation? Not pedant. Not pedant. Yes.
Wasn't Marx also very far from blessing private property society?
Yeah, but if you read the Communist Manifesto, what he says about capitalist society and what he did, that it's the monuments which he erected. What are the pyramids of Egypt compared with that? What are the expeditions of capitalist society compared with the Crusades? Yeah? All this, of course, capitalism destroyed all human relations and replaced them by the cash nexus. But that too is necessary, because without the tremendous development of the means of production and the simultaneous degradation of the proletariat, there would never be the end of class society. Never. That is a famous story which some people regard as a basic contradiction of Marx. That on the one hand, he praises, and on the other hand, he curses capitalist society. That is not a contradiction, because the points of view are different.
I don't understand why it is necessary to say that passions play the role as chief means for affecting the transition.
All right, that would be highly welcome. You could show that. How would you do it?
I don't know. This is what I'm asking. I don't understand why, for instance, if someone says that the beginning was a good-natured, unintelligent sort of state, and at the end is the conscious moral state, why does the in-between state have to be one in which evil, passions, or whatever you want to call it, plays a predominant role for affecting change?
Yeah, you have a very great authority on your side. You know that. Nothing else to talk about any religion. Aristotle's point is the politics is fundamentally contrary to Plato and to Machiavelli. Granted that most states have a very dubious foundation. There is no effect for that. Man is by nature a social animal, and it is possible, by virtue of this nature, that sense, a rational sense of need, would lead to the perception of the society. There's no need for irrationality or violence and individual. Surely one could say that. But the point is only that leads to the question is more subtle than that. We can completely not decide from this level. Of this level, you say makes much more sense. But the question is this. Comes up then in a more difficult way. For example, when you raise the question of the status of moral principles in politics, we have now a real virtue dedicated to virtue as its chief end. You see, but at this point, Aristotle himself says, he was always fine. And then could very well be used to say, there may be, there is something wrong. He has to face this question. I do not say that that's a feeling of others. I can't do but if it's possible, he could precisely say he would be very good. And possible. But to make the thing from one mind, but still, it is a perfectly sure. But let's leave it at this time only this. Kant makes here a premise which had a great success after him, and which resembles, and only resembles, evidence of pleasure. It is not identical, at least that is controversial between Mr. Pauling and me for the time being. Alright, now let us go on and let us turn to the fifth proposition. Nature compels man to achieve a civil society which universally, i.e. within it of course, administers right. The full development of man requires the greatest freedom. This freedom leads necessarily to an antagonism of its members. In a somewhat older language, if everyone is the judge of the means for self-preservation, there is bound to be conflict. Yeah? And if I am not the judge, if not everyone is the judge of the means of self-preservation, then he is not free. To be free means, on the lowest level, to be a free judge of the means to your self-preservation. And that means, of course, immediately conflict, because as many heads, as many opinions. And now, but yet a limitation of that freedom, so that it can coexist with the freedom of everyone else. That is a key proposition of Kant's legal or moral philosophy, political philosophy. That is true freedom, which can coexist with the freedom of everyone else. For this purpose, external laws, by which Kant means laws externally promulgated and externally enforced, are required. Now, how does this look like? Perhaps we read the fifth proposition. The greatest problem for the human race. Yeah? Greatest. Yeah. How does he say it? The greatest. You could perhaps say the biggest if you want to, but certainly not the latest. Yeah.
The greatest problem for mankind, the solution of which nature forces him to seek, is the achievement of a civil society which administers law generally.
You see, civil society means in Kant's theory what it means in law, what we call now sometimes the state. It does not yet have the meaning which the term got in Hegel, where it meant the bourgeois society, the market society. That is mentioned in the past. Yeah?
Nature can achieve its other intentions regarding mankind only through the solution and fulfillment of this task, for a completely just civic constitution is the highest task nature has set mankind. This is because only under such a constitution will be achieved the supreme objective of nature, namely the development of all the faculties of man by his own efforts.
You see, you don't forget this chain of ends. The end is development of all faculties. For this end there is needed freedom of each. Yeah?
It is also nature's intent that man should secure all these ends by himself only in society, which not only possesses the greatest freedom, and hence a very general antagonism of its members.
Well, I didn't see whether the nature also wants that man should procure that. What is that?
Secure all these ends to himself.
By himself. So in other words, freedom becomes then by primarily its subordinate ends. Becomes then an equally high. The perfection of man must be achieved by each man himself. That is there where freedom comes in as such. Because one could very say from a paternalistic point of view that some people might be able to achieve the perfection of which they are capable by paternalistic guidance. And not in here. Yes?
that the society must also possess the most precise determination and enforcement of the limit of this freedom, so that it can coexist with the freedom of other societies.
Other societies. Now let me see. Go on.
This will serve the
No.
highest purpose in nature.
Give me. Really? No, the point is this. I mean, I don't worry with every point. But when he says on page 121, line 4 from bottom, it is also nature that man should secure all his ends for himself. Yeah? That is then period. And now Kant draws, it is really in German a conditional sentence. And now the apotheosis begins. Since this is all the case, a society in which freedom under external law in the highest possible degree, combined with irresistible power, is to be found, i.e. a perfectly just civil constitution, must be the highest part of nature for the human race. Since I am not responsible for Kant's complicated and awkward stuff, since nature can achieve its other intentions regarding our species only by means of the solution and completion of sex law, namely this perfect civil society. Yes. Now, if man is compared, try to read from here on.
Want forces man, who so greatly inclines toward unrestricted freedom, to enter into this state of constraint. It takes the greatest want of all to bring men to the point where they cannot...
No, did he say that which compels man to enter that state is want? Did he say that? Okay. Yes.
It takes the greatest want of all to bring men to a point where they cannot live alongside each other in wild freedom, but within such an enclosure as the civic association provides. These very same...
In other words, what is then the greatest want or need, as Kant rather says? What is it? The Not means in German more than that. It means only trouble. Yeah? I'm in great trouble. Now what is that trouble, the greatest trouble in which man can be? The trouble which they inflict one upon the other. Yeah? Yes.
These very same inclinations afterwards have a very good effect. It is like the trees in the forest which, since each seeks to take air and sun away from the other, compel each other to seek both, and thus they achieve a beautiful straight growth. Whereas those that develop their branches as they please in freedom and apart from each other grow crooked and twisted. All culture and art which adorn mankind, the most beautiful social order, are the fruits of asociability, which is self-compelled to discipline itself, and thus to a derived art to fulfill completely the germs of its nature.
Now here everything depends on the revelation of the nature of the inclination. Which inclinations make men miserable prior to the establishment of legal order, and which inclination contribute so much to his perfection after the establishment of civil order, legal order. Which are these inclinations? That's how to ask. But I see one clear consequence of these inclinations, and they may help us to define the character of these inclinations. Competition. If the trees are isolated, yeah, he says, then they won't grow properly. But if the trees have to compete for air and sun, then they are compelled to grow all over. Competition is of crucial importance. Freedom for the sake of competition, for the sake of the development of man's faculties. How does this relate to Adam Smith, Mr. Professor? Is the development of the faculties a part of this schema?
No, sorry.
Yeah. I think that is then one point which I know that you are interested in the question Mark Smith. That's one great change. The development of the faculties, the full development of the faculties, is the end that he did not learn from Smith, that he learned from the German idealistic school. Well, you know that according to a famous sentence of Engels, the German working class, as he called it, by which he meant the Marxist part of the workers, were the true heirs to German idealistic philosophy. And there is very much truth. Much truth. Now let us go on. In the sixth proposition. This perfect civil society is this task of establishing the perfect civil society is solved later than any other task. It is never fully solvable. Only an approximation to that perfect society is imposed upon us by nature. And in this same section he remarks, and that was Monsieur pièce de résistance, the actualization of the perfect social order requires a good will, i.e. a coincidence of civic and moral goodness. Yeah? Yeah, but that is a very, very difficult question, whether such a coincidence is meant, whether we can't really assume that. I mentioned here only one point. In the seventh proposition, at the end of the first paragraph, read the end of the first paragraph of the seventh proposition.
It is this which must compel states to the resolution to seek quiet, security, the lawful constitution, however hard it may be for them, and to do that which the wild man is so very reluctantly forced to do, namely to give up his brutal freedom. It's the last sentence of the first paragraph. All wars are therefore so many attempts, not in the intention of men, but in the intention of nature, to bring about new relations among the states, and to form new bodies by the breakup of the old states, to the point where they cannot again maintain themselves alongside each other, and must therefore suffer revolutions and confinement, partly through the best possible arrangement of the civic constitution internally, and partly through the common agreement and legislation externally. There is created a state which, like a civic commonwealth, can maintain itself automatically.
Like an automat. Like an automat. Now, if that is a mechanism, automat, that cannot be itself a moral society, it can only be, how shall I say, a framework for morality, but it cannot be. Whether that is a very great problem, and I mentioned this before. We shall pursue this further next time. Whether the progress which we must assume is necessarily a progress toward morality, or only toward an order of society which morality demands. And I feel entirely different proposition. We have not solved it. We have barely stated. We stop here, and I would like to mention only one point, which is of some importance, and which we will think over more carefully next time, because we have not discussed at all today the connection of Kant's philosophy of history to his overall scheme. The crucial point is the distinction between phenomenal and a world as a thing in itself. Let us consider man. By a phenomenal being, man is fully determined by antecedent causes. By a nominal being, by a thing in himself, man is free. Now, we observe the progress towards the just society by observing the phenomenon. In the phenomenal world, we observe, or we must assume, and leave this open, a necessary progress towards just society. Is somehow held by man's really willingness. There is a kind of necessity on the basis of the passions and interests, which itself tends toward that. But somehow man's freely willingness, that man not driven by passion, say men like President Bill, out of a moral conviction, use these opportunities offered by the passions for the good end. That's one can comment. There is then, at any rate, since there is some agreement, there is some tendency in the actual series of events towards just society, which is demanded by morality. There is then some agreement between necessity, the sphere of necessity, and freedom. In this agreement, we may recognize the indication of a natural morality. It would be too strange if the play of human passions and interests would point, and to some extent even lead, into a morally desirable direction. Further, that there is such an agreement, such a convergence. That there is such a convergence is a defensible proposition. Nothing what we know Kant says refutes it. We may therefore think it. But in addition, we are obliged to believe in it, because such a belief is necessary. That belief is morally necessary. And therefore the natural teleology is of course never more than a presupposition. Never more. It is never absurd. Now I had one more point which I wanted to mention, so that you keep it in mind, because we must reread that. You see, that is very, very important. Yeah, I had a clear statement somewhere which I can't find. Maybe regarding the deeper connection. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I don't have this note. I have a somewhat clear statement at this point. What I want to say, perhaps I didn't construct it, but I want to say this. The status of Kant's philosophical history depends absolutely
on the distinction between the phenomenal world and the thing in itself. Absolutely. We cannot, and perhaps that would be one way of approaching Kant's thinking entirely from the outside. To say, look at what men are doing and what kind. The crudest and most heavenly things are the most effective. Yet, the passion from the Prolegomenon and others. But this point, this next, say Marxism, class struggle, and sinners, revolutions, wars, specialities, and all things. And yet they lead to something which has been called to a homogeneous and universal society. Universal meaning comparison on men. Homogeneous meaning there are no legal distinctions on any basis other than merit between the members of the universal society. It is a perfectly just. Now let's assume that is so. If we make this statement, it's very strange how the amoral life of man will bring about and morally decide itself. That what Kant contends is that you cannot even diagnose without making this clear-cut distinction between the birth of determination and furthermore you cannot understand if you do not make an assumption of an assumption which you never proved and which you are morally obliged of a natural superiority. In the case of Marxism, there is an absolute reason why this should be, by the class structures should be to the perfect society. Not about the question of the criteria, how many recognize the perfect society that understands independence and process. Marx says, the common expression used for criticizing this is that Marx's version rests on an optimistic assumption. The Marx says mankind never puts itself any task which it is not able to perform. And that would even be a clear expression of that. That makes perfect sense from a teleological point of view. But without that, what is the basis? In Kant, this problem is, and this form of theology, of course, was real, and is, of course, right, very much so. I think we must do it, and next time we will devote to further discussion.